Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is another, and this is post Super Bowl. We're recording the week, not even a full week after Todd Smith's Philadelphia Eagles. That's right. They're his. He claims them. He loves them. Welcome back to another episode of Qore Conversations. Let's start where we should start, Todd. Congratulations on your team winning. How long have you been an Eagles fan? Has it been since childhood? I want that backstory. I know the audience is like, we don't want to talk about football. We want AI and data, but go ahead.
Exactly. Since I can remember, I was basically handed the Eagles jersey as a child, and I played football in my front yard, and I had an Eagles helmet. And I actually liked Tony Franklin, the kicker at the time. He was the barefoot kicker. And just grew up around the team. My one of my dad's friends built the sideline benches that the players sit on to stay warm in the winter and keep their helmets dry and all that stuff. Yeah, and super crazy. So I got to go to games as a kid. I would stand next to Wilbur Montgomery. I stand next to Ron Jaworski, and I'd met Dick Vermeil multiple times. Like, I've been around the team and the old Vet Stadium, and now they have the new Link and Financial. And I actually, right here, I have Vet Stadium seats. I have two next to my desk. So I've bled green from the beginning. So all-time favorite Eagle? Ooh. Top three? Oh my gosh. I think there's eras of the Eagle players, right? I would definitely say Jaworski to me was just tough, great quarterback. Lost the Super Bowl against the Oakland Raiders and Jim Plunkett. I think it was like 16-9. Devastating to me as a child. I then liked the Cunningham eras too. Mm-hmm. And then it went, obviously McNabb, and McNabb kind of got sick in the Super Bowl. And then I didn't like McNabb anymore. But you have that, I don't know, I feel like in the end, man, they continue to put together a great team. I think today, I love Jalen Hurts. I think he's such a class act as a person. What he did with his first, when he signed his first rookie contract, he has a 5-person women-led team that manages him. He's never in the press doing stuff stupid. And he was like that guy. What was he? He was in Alabama? And then they stopped playing him, and then he went to Oklahoma and wins a national championship. I mean, to have that strength as a kid, not speak out, to not say, "Oh, what was me," and take it to the press, a lot do. A lot of people do. I feel like that's an inner stoicism that's really rare. And I love the team. This year they're a young team. I feel like there's a lot, and man, they just showed up last Sunday. I was talking to Kane Grau, a good friend, was the old CTO of Cars, and went on and did Driven. He was in Mexico. He had his hat on. He's sending me pictures, and we're like, "Is this real? Is this? Oh, Eagles are gonna buff it up. Kansas is going to come back." I loved Andy Reid. He was a great coach for us too. I'm like, oh, it's, and I'm sitting there literally even third, fourth quarter. I'm like, oh, Mahomes is going to come back. We're going to end up losing stupid by a field goal. And no, it just, the train went on. And then as soon as 5 minutes were left, we put in second players just to let everyone play in the Super Bowl. Seeing Cooper, get his first pick 6 in a Super Bowl. And holy crap, as that kid, as a rookie, I don't know. There was so much stuff around that game. I feel like I'll never forget it. The last time we won, I actually flew up for the Eagles parade. This time it's Valentine's Day, and I think I'd prefer to stay married. Yeah. My wife is not obviously Eagles fan because she's not a football fan. So I was like, I think I'm going to stay. But I was at the gym this morning, and I was watching the parade was on.
Well, you made the right choice on the parade.
Listen, this year. I love my wife more than football. Yes, Sean, I made that decision when I got married. So
I feel very, very, very fortunate that my wife loves football. Maybe
Yeah.
sometimes more than I do, and so we're both big Seahawks fans, both from Washington. So, and we both commented watching the game that it felt like when the Seahawks absolutely annihilated the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
It was such domination, and we remembered people saying like, "Oh, this Super Bowl's not great. Like, it's not very like." But if you're the like last week, if you're the Eagles fan,
Oh, yeah.
that's exactly what you want to see. You want to see them squash people every single play. You don't care if it's close. You want
Yeah.
your team to be like, no, there is no question that
Yeah.
we're better than the Chiefs. And it was very
There
much
was
that.
no question. And I think things that stuck out to me was one, just the size of our line is they're enormous.
Yeah.
I mean, average weight was 338 pounds or something.
Yes. Yeah.
Average. And they're probably
Yeah.
heavier. That's probably, they said, when they weighed in at training camp. So
Beginning of the
they're
season.
probably
Yeah.
all
Beginning of the
heavier
season.
after Thanksgiving,
Yes.
Christmas, and a couple weeks off. I mean, so they're probably at their heaviest right now. And I think Kansas didn't know what to do. And I
Yeah.
think, I mean, we never blitzed. And it was crazy to me that, we were just on Mahomes, knocking him, tackling him. And I feel like it reminded me, I was texting Kane. I was like, this is just like the movie Miracle when they're playing the Russians and it's the countdown's happening. And they're like, why isn't he pulling the goalie? And they're like, they don't know what to do. And I think
Yeah.
Mahomes, that team, they just didn't know what to do. And they were so out of their rhythm, you could see it. And you could see that bench every time they panned to it. And you just saw their frustration. They didn't know what to do. And they didn't. And look, I think everybody goes into every game with a game plan. And you play your plan and you play it for good or bad. And they just didn't. The plan didn't work. Not only didn't work, I mean, they did shut down Saquon. They shut him down. Like, the run game was off. But dude, we started passing to him because he's good. He has good hands. Like, we adapted really well to what they threw at us. And I look at it, it's like business too. I really always relate things back that, and I think Mike Tyson said it right. Like, everyone has a plan till you're punched in the face. I was like, I think Kansas City had a plan until they hit our O-line. And then they were like, whoa, they were just manhandled and they didn't know what to do. Our defensive line, I think, just crushed them. So anyway, super exciting. I am living on the glory. I will, for the next, till season starts. I will be always. I was going to wear my actual Hertz jersey for our thing, but I was like, oh no, that's pushing it too far. But I got the hat on at least. So.
Well, it was a dominating performance for sure, and I agree with you on all those things. I think Jalen Hurts is a class act of a player. Always happy when you see people like that. How he handled himself, and you nailed it on his college experience too. I mean, that's mental fortitude for a young kid. I mean, it's so much pressure and full domination. And I honestly think it dovetails a little bit into what I'm going to be talking to you about today, because I think that what ended up happening is that the Chiefs ended up in this state of like, we're now guessing, like, how do we figure all this out? How do we figure out how to change whatever their plan was in the middle of a game around something that they hadn't seen before? And imagine also then having the confidence that they came to that game with, thinking, we've beat these guys before. We've beat them in the big game before. Like, so it was really, it was quite interesting. But I'm ready to switch on your AI and data brain.
Listen,
you're always killing it on LinkedIn.
You don't have to switch it on, Sean. That brain is
I
always.
know. I shouldn't even say
man.
that. I shouldn't even have to say that.
I love this stuff. I just commented on Jason Rice's. He posted a bunch of data. I was like, it is literally the best 11 minutes and 8 seconds. I said of data analytics around used cars and leads, and stuff. And I was like, man, this is so valuable. So I just actually forwarded it on my LinkedIn because, again, man, the data tells an amazing story, right? If you believe, really get a hold of it, you can change your entire business trajectory. So
yeah. Well, and Jason Rice, man, he's like you and I, an OG. One of the pioneers, been in it
Yeah,
forever, and he just continues to do awesome stuff. So yeah,
yeah,
I love that guy. I love what he shares. Well, so here's what I want to set up for you today, and for the audience listening and or watching.
okay.
Dealers, I think if you've been in the industry for even 7 minutes, you know that dealerships are drowning in data. Yet most dealers are still kind of guessing, like they're guessing relative to sales and marketing and decisions they make about inventory. And so, what if I told you, audience, that AI could predict what's going to happen next? What if Todd Smith could help you understand that there are a lot of predictions that you might be, well, it might blow your mind. So in this episode, we're going to dive into some of these things around predictive and prescriptive analytics, why that matters, and how successful dealers are thinking about and starting to use AI to gain their edge. So I say, let's freaking go, Tom Brady. I'll just keep it clean for the kids. It's a family
Yep,
show.
you go.
So by the end of the episode, just expect that you'll know much better on how you could take AI, you could use automation, you can use this to help your dealership make better decisions, to reduce waste, to maximize profits, all the things that you should be focused on today. But first, I want to talk about where dealerships start to get it wrong, because the problem is really right up top. The dealership data is kind of broken. So before we get too far into the future, let's break down where dealerships are kind of today, Todd.
Sure. Let's start at the first place, which is just the fragmentation of data. Data is held across many systems: DMS, CRM, web analytics, GA4. Like, take your pick of systems across. You may have apps for video. You may have different text tools. You have chat on the website. You have trade-in forms. There's so much data surrounding a dealer operationally. And unfortunately, it's held in these systems. And, bringing that together to me is the first thing. And if that doesn't happen, I think the rest of our conversation today is a moot point. It really is. And I feel like many dealers I talk to, have really incomplete insights into their stuff. And there's a lot of bias in data. Just in general, I see data being used very specifically around certain, like, functions inside dealership. Like, oh, how many leads do we get? And okay, leads are important, absolutely. But, did we qualify? Are those leads? Are they valid leads? Because there's no governors on leads going into systems, right? Nobody's saying, like, that's a real email, that's a real phone number, that's a real person. Or, wow, this person only put a lead in because it was some e-price. So they're still way high funnel, curious to know, like, what a payment would be on a Traverse. And in the end, they're not buyers. Yet they're thrown into this lead farm in the CRM. And now come on in, Sean, you're ready to buy a car. So I think there's a lot that I've seen around just biased data or weaponizing data, and only taking the data that they want to curate a image or something inside the store. And I think that you kind of have to peel that back a little bit. And the one thing I'm hoping, AI will kind of normalize that and kind of train, if you train the engine correctly to pull the bias out, that you can just look clearly at your performance for what it is. Because to me, unless you have truth, how will you improve? Good
Mm-hmm.
example. Let's say, at the gym, and I do 12 reps, but I struggled and I sort of did 13, but not really, because someone picked up the bar, but I write 13 down. So did I do it? Not really, but I'm going to count it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I see this all the time in data. And
Yeah.
because we're like, oh, I want to be better, or my numbers need to match so I don't get fired. Like, so that there's a deep side of that, I think. And I think we're going to move. And I think I wrote a note here, and it was interesting. Like, all data inside dealerships is lagging right now. So we're not looking into leading data. We're always looking lagging. What did we do over the last 30 days? And this is a construct of operations in dealerships that everyone thinks in 30-day cycles. And then we review the 30 days backwards of like what went right and wrong. Though if you think about it from a business perspective, looking backwards does not necessarily change the forwards because it's done, it's smoked. You're not getting back that you had some overaged inventory that you lost or didn't reprice, and now you're trying to reprice it into the next month. So I think we're going to see being able to create more predictive modeling and then prescriptive modeling. So I want to start looking instead of backwards. I think the ambition of Qore and what I've been focused on is like, can we start peering into the future, a week, 2 weeks, this month, or more, to predict things that will happen. And those predictions, I think, will get better. And then as those predictions get better, we can then prescribe actions to do and execute, because that's what AI is for.
Yeah, you actually put a post. You post a lot of content, really good content on LinkedIn. So there's just a reminder for everybody, if you're not already connected and following Todd, if you're interested in AI, there's a lot of different uses for AI, by the way. But if you're interested in AI, especially around data, you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not following Todd, because I don't think anybody is even close to the amount of content that you're putting out. But recently you put one out that I thought was very interesting, that it kind of speaks to that example of, even if you use like in the gym, did you actually get that 13th rep or did you not get it? If you contextualize that inside of a dealership, knowing that, and you talk about this a lot, that it's hard to get that single source of truth because there's not a single source of content. Like you're taking CMS data and DMS data and all these multiple systems and marketing and whatever else you got going on at your dealership. But if you aren't accurate and truthful, it's not even just logging the rep. Like, it's like some people, it's like, well, they didn't log 1 through 12, let alone get 13. Or, did you then share that plan, something that in your dealership with someone else that had inaccuracies in it, and then it just perpetuates all kinds of wasted money. You can never get efficient if you don't learn from data, and you cover these things so well. And I like the fact that you're taking people in the direction of trying to think of a framework mentally of, okay, well, what are we wanting to do? Well, we want to be able to predict. We also want to be able to prescribe. And if we don't have all the right stuff going on with data, then we've got problems. So I guess that's the next place that I want to push you towards is, how do you think we move from just the prediction? Because of course it's important, but how do we get from kind of prediction and then start to take that? Because I'm sure every dealer who's paying attention wants to get to that point where, like, now we can prescribe things in a way that uses all this new technology that's at our fingertips. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So look, I feel like back away and let's deconstruct that. Forget the technology. Let's go back to the most fundamental. Like, how do you win games, right? And it's fundamentals. Trick plays, all this other stuff, great to have in the back pocket, play action, all this, but it's, run game, it's fundamental stuff. So that really win. And this is that point where, we talked a little bit, obviously getting all the data out of silos, job one. But in the same breath, it is hygiene. So unless you clean and organize that data and put it in a construct that you can start gaining intelligence on it, you're at a loss. And it's not uncommon for dealers. They never hygiene their existing customer data, ever. Or once every time they change DMS, so every decade or longer. Or, maybe it's every couple of years they hire a new marketing guy and he's like, no, we got to clean up our data. We have, 5 Todd Smiths in the database. Let's clean it up. And I look at those, I was like, it all begins right there. And dealers have to change the mindset and start realizing your most valuable asset is your dealership data. It's not your building. It's not the cars, not even your people. Without your customers and that organized understanding of them, you don't really have a business, right? You have a framework, you have a factory, but you need the product, and the product is people. And I think when I look at stuff, dealers don't take that into consideration because I look at where the spend goes. And today the spend is all for conquest, new cars, new customers, boom, boom, boom. Yet you have a database of customers and service customers, and you're not talking to them besides blanket marketing them. I feel like there's buyers in your existing database. There's buyers entering your service drive. There's people who service with you who've never bought a car from you. And there's people that have bought cars from you who've never serviced from you. And maybe it's dealers have had a hard time getting access to that data where it would make sense. But this is what has to be done today. And this will then enable us to start predicting what's going to happen next. Meaning, if I have organized, clean data, maybe I enhance it with additional third-party data to fill in holes and more have an enriched understanding of that consumer and their behavior, and seeing that behavior on longevity over past years and cycles of vehicle or service ownership. Once I understand that flow, then being able to see the patterns. And to me, AI is perfect at pattern matching. It sees the distinct golden thread that humans just a lot of times will miss. And if dealers just get there, all their marketing spend reduces dramatically. I mean, it would not be uncommon that I think dealers could cut 30 to 50% of their marketing budget almost overnight if all their dealership data is organized, cleansed, and you start writing and understanding the predictive algorithms on top of that. I think that's phase one of this. Once that is done, I feel dealers' marketing dollar spend goes down. They create highly personalized experiences for consumers. Never had that. So it's a true one-to-one personalization at scale. And what you're able to do then is deliver a much more prescriptive outcome to that customer. Like, send Sean this on this day, and here's the message and why. And because it has all of understanding of Sean, and it gets to know him. And I love to tell people this. So you play with ChatGPT, right? That like you go in there and mess around with it and write stuff. Right?
Of course. All the
so
time.
Go in there and ask it, tell me everything you know about Sean Rains. No, it's crazy. Do it. It will create a very, most likely, if you use it enough, it's going to create a very accurate understanding of you. And how does that happen? It happens because it has the data. It knows how you're interacting with it. It knows how you talk, the words you use, the questions you ask it. So it deeply understands you, and it projects it back to you. And I think once you have all the dealer's data, same thing will happen, right? Like, meaning the customer data. Once you have it organized in the same way, it's almost like, wow, I can tell so much about customers and predict behavior because you have access to the data. And I think dealers need to see that value. And I think once they see that value, I think it changes their whole business. And look, we're talking about what I call marketing. I think there's a whole deeper side where, I see a world where I can prompt on all dealership data. I have payroll data, I have everything, and I can write a prompt that says, show me my employee productivity in variable operations and how do I optimize it over the next 90 days to increase 10% more car sales or something like that. Or show me all my service product pricing compare it to brands, my competitive brands in market, and third party competitors, the Meineke's, the Quick Lubes, etc. Reprice my products that I can gain 15% more profitability while staying competitive in the market. That, to me, that's the world we're heading. And that only happens when you get all the data.
Yeah, so every time we have a new podcast episode and we talk about this stuff, I love these conversations. I feel like I'm learning with you, but I feel like I'm in it as well. I'm in this. I get it. I understand these things. And so I just, for the audience, I want to go back a little bit, just a little rewind into, you mentioned this, and you're not the only one that mentions this, at least the people that are paying attention, but data has been weaponized, and it is weaponized today by many different suppliers, different companies. We don't name names on this podcast, but there are companies that weaponize data, and they've been doing it for decades. They were, call them what you want, they were smart enough to know the value of what's going through the pipes. And if they can't own the pipes, some of them own the pipes that the data goes through as well. But if you can have control, partial, co-owned control, whatever you want to call it, but if you've got the data, you can weaponize it. And this is where I know you have, because you were a dealer for so many years, that you have a heart for helping them and solving problems for them. The internet age has buried dealers in technology, and all of that technology brought with it an avalanche after avalanche after avalanche of data. And now most dealers sit at the bottom of all of these avalanches of data, and they don't even know, oftentimes don't know how it's being either used against them or used to confuse them or used to keep them in a place where, that old saying, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always be where you've always been.
Yeah.
A lot of dealers feel that way because this technology era that we're getting close to 30 years of has buried them in so much that now when you think, well, what am I going to do with all of it? What you're talking about, and I know you don't like to be promotional about what you've been doing with your new company, QoreAI, but what you are doing is basically helping dealers understand, if you put all these things into place so you do have one place to understand these things and you do properly use AI, instead of just being like, hey, what's the hit list we're going after that we pulled out of the CRM, and it's, garbage in, garbage out, as we've said for years, as if that's a way for us to give a pass to bad behavior. Okay, well, it's no longer a funny catchphrase. It's like that harms the dealer. So here Todd Smith comes along and you say these things, and I'm like, gosh, what you're saying means that a dealer could say, instead of just, I'm going to get my garbage in, garbage out of people that we need to follow up with today, that you're saying, no. You do it right, that your data hasn't been weaponized against you. You have done all the things. You're using AI in ways that keeps it clean and keeps it organized. Now, that top 5 or top 10 customers to call today, you know all of these things. What's the right offer to send them, if they serviced ever with you, if they've ever bought from you, auto-generating the exact kind of messaging to how to communicate, what to say to them at what time. And that's just one part of it. It also is like, hey, general manager, would you also like all of this data be telling you and informing you more on what vehicles should you maybe acquiring for your used car strategy, and at what price? Or there's just so many different things that seem so practical for dealers. And we're finally here. You and I have a lot of conversations like this. And I know that you and I have conversations outside of even these episodes where we're talking to other people about data, and all the things we've been talking about for decades now, it's here. It's here right now. And you could be, if you're a dealer that consumes this content, you should absolutely be thinking, maybe it's time to say, well, there's a better way than spreadsheets and all these disparate tools that don't share information. Maybe there's a better future, because there is. And I don't know. I'm listening to you thinking, gosh, man, it's probably 95% of the dealers out there need to have a solution to this age-old problem. Maybe it's more than 95%. Is it more than 95%?
Yeah, no, it is. It's crazy how many dealers just are Like, look, I feel like data is technically, maybe it's been an elusive thing, right? Like what, and they're like, oh, I have all these vendors, they all give me reports, they're all like self-accountable, like the results. And then you're like, well, the vendor's not going to give you a
Self-accountable.
bad report, most likely. I mean, he's going to try to edge it in their favor, creating bias to their product, which again, probably pretty normal. But I think it's deeper that, look, dealers, you need to become a data driven organization, not just a sales driven organization. And the data will drive more effective sales at a higher profit per vehicle retail. And if you think data, you build it a data first organization. I think this is the change that we're going to see, because it's the only way you leverage AI. You're never going to be successful leveraging the AI of your vendors. That's just not going to work. It'll work in silos, continuing the same problem we have today, meaning data broken across tons of systems, and you'll never get it organized around the customer. So one tool will be saying one thing to a customer, another tool is going to say something different to the same customer, because they're not accessing the same core data. They don't have access to the same data resources. So when you think about that in a construct, you got to go, okay, dealers need to own their data at the bottom, store it. And for us at Qore, like, my goal was to be the backbone and like say, hey, Mr. Dealer, we're like your AWS. We're going to organize, store all your data, keep it hygiene. We're going to do a little beyond what an AWS does, because we need to. Our industry has some challenges. But out of that, you can start running AI algorithms, enhance data from different sources, do all kinds of things. And I think the future roadmap for any dealer in 25 should be data first, because I think you see the AI, you see that new avalanche coming of a whole new series of applications, whether it's agentic agents, complete automations. Like, there's so much like inbound to us that I think you have to deeply go, okay, I definitely want to be more efficient. How am I going to do that? And it only begins with data. Like, there is nowhere else. Like, you'll never win this without getting your data right. Like, there's no shortcut. You're not going to buy your way. There's no somebody's just going to magically make this happen. And I think that's a super important thing for dealers to consider. So
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you're essentially telling dealers some of the most practical things around how they think about using data, putting it into. I mean, it's the, imagine looking at that list, that manual list, or maybe you're working off of a spreadsheet or something like that, versus, hey, we just helped you understand how all of your data working for you
right.
says you better call these 3 people today because they're somewhere around 85% chance that they're likely to buy because of all of these data points that we didn't leave in all these places that tell us different things. So I wanna keep you moving along here to let's talk maybe real world impact. Not necessarily, you don't have to do case studies or tell stories of dealers that you're working with, but maybe hypothetical, but real world, real contextual hypotheticals of what it looks like in the real world, things that dealers might be able to just think, oh, I can relate to that.
Okay, let's bang out a few of these because these are easy, right? One, every dealer wants to target decline service work. Okay. How do you make it
Mm-hmm.
easy? So you want to decline service work. You just don't want to blanket those people. Maybe you want to be more selective. So being able to type a prompt that says, show everyone that has declined tires and brakes in the last 90 days. Cool. I got a curated list. I know there's an inbound storm. Those are people, that's an easy phone call to have. Hey, Sean, super valued customer. I wanted to call you because I saw you didn't put tires on last time you were in for service. We have a storm coming. Your safety and your family's safety is important to us. Do you want to get that done? Different conversation than getting a $99 off alignment like text message or email, right? So I think I look at that. I look at scoring all just inbound leads, just in general, like put leads into a bucket. Treat people where they're at in their buying process. You'll connect deeper with them, have a better relationship, better conversation. The buyers are going to act one way. The shoppers are going to act different. Tire kickers are going to be completely different. So understanding that. Also, I think deep inside your business, there's lots of interesting data. Show me customers who've serviced with us over the last 3 years, but haven't been in the last 6 months. And the car's over 3 years old, or whatever the criteria you want to pick. When you can carve up your data using a natural language prompt, it really changes the types of conversations you can have with your customers. You can create very curated lists for select sales team members, service BDC, whatever it is you have. Or you could just reach out to me with a personalized messaging, right? That it just resonates with people. Nobody wants to just get the email trickle to them, right? I mean, that doesn't make sense. Or, show me customers who visited my website, looked at some cars, didn't put leads in, but they're my customers. Okay, that's cool. Show me people in my service drive in the next week of appointments who have an over 800 propensity to buy score. So I know they're in market. Maybe they're fixing their car to give it to a kid, or they're fixing their car to sell it independently because they owe more on the trade because they bought it like pandemic era, everyone overpaid. So you have tons of negative equity, and they realize that with a quick payment calculator. So what are they doing? They're going to try to curb the car. So, but they don't understand, like, wow, you can do, there's lots of different ways you can restructure that. So I think there's a million ways when you start carving up data that is incredibly valuable, to be able to help dealers meaning dealers help themselves with their own data by understanding their customers better.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's also, once you get started, even with the ones that you've shared, it's like Pandora's box. Now that all of this exists,
Yeah.
you're literally going to be thinking of other things. And now the conversations that are being had between you and your fellow dealers, imagine conversations that are going to change the dynamics inside your 20 groups, right?
Yeah.
Inside what people are talking about at conferences. I mean, how much of the stuff that's being talked about at conferences and events is just literally lip service for the people that paid to be on the stage? It's like, ugh.
Yeah. One of
So
our dealer groups just actually asked us to take his composites and put it into his LLM to train it, to just keep him on
love that.
benchmarking checks, and then auto alert him when things are off. And I'm like, that's super cool. Like, I'm even like, that's really cool. And that's going to get done, right? And I feel like, I think I'm going to see more and more of this with our clients. I view our clients are we have very innovative dealer groups right now, right? They're the ones who really want to lead. They want to get ahead of this. They want to own their data. They understand the importance of it. We're not through that Moore's law of like, we're in the innovators phase, and like those early adopters. We're definitely not in the late adopters or any of the other like bigger bell curve of stores. So we definitely see there's a finite amount of progressive dealers, and they're the ones we want to do business with right now, because a lot of this is experimental, right? You gotta be willing to get in and make some meals, see what tastes good, doesn't, and tweak it. Needs salt, needs pepper, needs a little spice. Like, let's do it. But if you're doing it from a clean data set, super powerful.
Yeah. You've mentioned this before on other episodes where, you think about it as like, it's the race, everybody starts at the same point, but some people aren't even out of the gate. So it's like, like, what are you doing? And the good example for you to share, it kind of segues into something I wanted to ask you about. And I love that you say this, because I say this kind of stuff all the time. Marketing is it's experimentation. You're just trying. You got to try. You got to do something, as opposed to like, we'll just sit here and maybe people will figure out that we exist. No, it doesn't work that way. And so in the case of dealers, using technology to their advantage, de-weaponizing, right, data, or maybe weaponizing it in a different way, like to actually, be more on the offense in their own best interest. but there are still objections, right? There are still dealers that they have a hard time kind of getting over some of those things. So I kind of know sometimes what dealers are thinking, although you talk to dealers more these days than I talk to dealers, but I still talk to one or two a week. And oftentimes they're asking me things like, especially the ones that I never tell all of my industry friends who they are, because then they'll go like, Sean, connect us with all your dealer friends. I protect their trust in me over many years, but they'll say, does any of this really work? It just seems like it's really complex, or I see people slinging out stupid images, and like that's what the impression that AI is making on dealers, depending on whether it's generative, if it's LLM stuff, like most people are not immersed in it like you and I are. So when you think about that, my question is, when a dealer's like, it's really complex, or I don't understand it, what about all these existing systems that I have in play? Like, how do you kind of help them through that? What are the things that you hear, and how do you respond to dealers and encourage them to, hey, it's a new frontier, and you don't have to be on the very, very bleeding edge, but it is time to step 1 foot forward.
Yeah, so I view cleaning your data, organizing has nothing to do with AI. This has to be getting your house in order. This is a clean and organized house. That's what that is. I think you start there, then you experiment. AI is a tool. And I feel like I know this, I believe wholeheartedly for a fact. AI will not replace people. People who use AI will replace people. And I think it's very clear right now. And though, yeah, if you get in and start playing with it, the impact is huge. Like, I think you've played a lot with graphics. I've played a lot with writing different things. Like, it gets really good and really fast. And it doesn't forget, especially if you're training your own models. Like, it gets smarter and smarter. It knows your persona more and more. Like, so I definitely believe that forget AI, like just block and tackle your data. And you do that first, you're going to start winning. And then you experiment with these tools, the AI applications running on your data. But in the end, you still have your data, and that's your value. So,
yeah. Well, I think that's important. Dealers, I think, need encouragement, and I think maybe I'm so I hate to use passionate's overused. I think I feel so strongly about dealers being encouraged by the right people, the right subject matter experts in the space, because of what I mentioned earlier in the episode. They're so buried. The avalanche of data and technology has made it for a lot of dealers where they get into that kind of state of paralysis. And so it's not that they're not moving at all. I mean, just February alone looks like it's been a pretty positive start to get out of the first month of the new year, which is great. But at the same time, here as we start 2025, dealers have to make big decisions on what they're going to do different. If we're going to try to do everything the same, it's just this extremely dynamic industry. And right now, you seem to be the one with I think the strongest message of evangelism of like, you guys got to understand this before. This is the thing that concerns me, because I agree with you. I don't think that the AI is going to replace the people. It's the people that know it. But just like where we sit today in the industry, the people that knew things about how they could use it to their advantage, you have to bet your bottom dollar that they're thinking about how they're going to use AI to either further make it more difficult for dealers, versus the dealers saying, we've got to know this ourselves. We have to
I
be
don't
in
think this is
control.
something you depend on the vendor. I think this is a dealer very specific thing. I feel like
Yes.
you cannot entrust your business's long-term success in a vendor. As I said, have all these AI models that you turn it off, you lose it, they give it to someone else, they're training multiple like there's a lot in there. That's why, like, for every dealer, we set up their own LLM. We want them to learn and grow on their own data, because there's behavior differences between how stores operate, the people they sell, the people that they employ, the location. All these are like points that have to be considered, and that's why every dealer needs their own model. and multiple then algorithms running across that model. But that's the world. That's where we're heading right now. So.
Yeah, you talk about it a lot, and I think you're right. I mean, the future's taking us to a place where obviously we're just getting started, but this is already it's in a state where dealers have to think, okay, across all of our departments right now, there's a use case, right? There is. And it's only going to get, in my world, there's a whole lot of people that are building out like the agent models of what that agent's going to do. That's going to become even more prolific within automotive, to where, again, it's not going to necessarily replace all people, but there are going to be certain roles that's like, we don't really need a person for that.
Yeah. And that model is coming now. And it is going to come with the dealers that have aggregated their data, because you need the data to build the models. So like all these things are correlated. So
yeah. Well, listen, dealers, take action now. Like, get started. Like, move beyond just like casually looking at some of this stuff. Make sure you're tuning into all of these conversations. If you're not already following Todd, if you find this type of information valuable, the best place to connect is actually with Todd on LinkedIn. Yes, you can go to QoreAI.com, and it's spelled a little, unique. That's QoreAI.com. There's also a YouTube channel where you can watch all these episodes. Every time we have a full long form one, we throw it out on YouTube. You can see it there. Todd loves to hear your feedback. And so there's a lot of you that we see the types of content engagement, especially from the LinkedIn perspective. And guess what? Reaching out to him is completely free. He's not going to ask you to, put in a credit card number or give him your wallet to talk about these things. He is somebody who literally comes from the side of the fence that's called retail. He knows that business so well. And today, he's taking QoreAI to a place where you really should be paying attention. So if you're interested in learning more, reach out to him and his team. Just raise your hand. They'll reach back out to you. And until the next episode, everybody, happy trails. Until we meet again for another Qore Conversation.
Thank you.